Today we're going to talk about the surface area and volume of prisms and cylinders. You will definitely need your formula sheet today because we're using that through most of the lesson. But let's start with some vocabulary. We're going to first start talking about lateral faces. The lateral faces are the parallelograms formed by connecting the vertices of the bases. So really the lateral faces are the faces that are not the bases. So when we talk about lateral edges, we talk about just the segments that are connecting the edges of your lateral faces. So we don't use any part of the base there. Surface area is notated with the letters SA. You'll see that on the formula sheet. So surface area is the sum of all the areas of its faces, meaning it does include the bases. So if you want to find the entire surface area of that figure there, you would use a formula. Lateral area is also on your formula sheet. It's notated by LA, and since lateral really talks about everything but the bases, it is the sum of the areas of its lateral faces. So it's pretty much the surface area minus the bases, or base, depending on what type it is, a prism or pyramid. So specifically, we're going to talk about the rectangular and square prism first. So go ahead and label 5, 4, and 11. I went ahead and put up the volume and the surface area formula that's found on your formula sheet. There is no lateral area for this, but I just told you that the lateral area is really your surface area minus the area of your bases. And for notation wise, the big B on your formula sheet, anytime you see it, is the area of the base. And that is actually on the bottom corner too. It tells you what big B stands for, area of the base. So if we want to find lateral area, we're going to find the surface area minus 2 of the big B's, because there are 2 bases on this prism. So that is technically the formula to find the lateral area of this rectangular prism. The little p stands for perimeter of the base. Okay, so we're always looking at the base for your P and your B. Now the h is the height of your two-dimensional figure. Okay, so it's the distance, technically, the distance between your 2 bases. Okay. So we're going to fill in our P, our H, and our B first, and then we'll move on to the formulas. So first off, we need to determine what our base is. Our base here is this side with the sides 5 and 4. So perimeter is a rectangle, which is on your formula sheet. Perimeter equals 2L plus 2W. So the perimeter is 2 times your length 4 plus 2 times your width 5. So you'll get 8 plus 10 gives us the perimeter of 18. So that's the perimeter of our base. The height, or the distance between the 2 bases, is 11. And our big B would be the area of our base, which is a rectangle, so length times width, or 5 times 4, which gives us our big B as 20. So let's go ahead and now look into our lateral area, surface area, and volume formulas. We'll skip LA because we actually have to find your SA first to plug into our LA. So our surface area is the big long 2 times 11 times 4 plus 2 times 11 times 5 plus 2 times 4 times 5. Okay? So you're going to plug all of that in, and you should get the surface area to be 238. So now when we do lateral area, we're going to do our surface area, 238, minus 2 of our big B's, the area of the bases, so 2 times 20. So 238 minus 40 gives you the lateral area as 198. Finally, volume is probably the easiest. It's length times width times height. So 11 times 4 times 5, and you will get your volume to be 220. All right, so why don't you go ahead and try this one on your own. If you notice, it is a square prism. Okay, so find your P, H, and B first, and then go ahead and do your formulas. All right, hopefully you have gotten these answers. Our base is this bottom part, so to find the perimeter, it's going to be 4 times 6 because it's a square. Our height is the distance between the two bases, and then the big B is going to be 6 squared because it's a square. And then you're just plugging it into the formulas. Now let's go ahead and take a look at another prism. This is a triangular prism, and it is on your formula sheet, and it does give you both the volume, all three, the volume, lateral area, and surface area. Now, with a triangular prism, the base shape is a triangle. So you need to draw your triangle base out all the time because the big B and the little p are within these formulas here. So you have to find those out before you can even go to the formula. So I'm going to redraw. We have it actually an equilateral triangle for our base. So really the perimeter, you're just going to add up 6 plus 6 plus 6 gives us 18. Now the height is not the height of the triangle. Remember, the height is the distance between the two bases when we look at that h. So our height of this is 8, but our big B, we need to find the area of this triangle. And so remember, area is 1/2 base times height for a two-dimensional triangle. Well, we have the base, which is 6, but we have to find our height. So we need to drop the altitude, make our little smaller triangle, and cut that in half with 3 and 3. So remember, you're using Pythagorean theorem. You have 6, 3, and x to find the height of your triangle. Once you do that, and you should get the height to be about 5.2. I just rounded to the nearest 10. So then our area, after doing 1/2 6 times 5.2, will be 15.6, or our big B. So now if you notice, we have H, P, and B for the values in our formula. So let's just plug it in. LA is equal to H times P, so 8 times 18 will give us our LA as 144. Our SA is actually our LA, okay, the H times P, which we found to be 144, plus 2 times the area of the big B, 15.6. When you do that, you should get 175.2. Lastly, our volume is the big B, so 15.6 times the height, which is 8. And you should get the volume to be 124.8. So let's try one on your own. Now, what I'm going to help you do first is redraw the triangle off to the side. Now, if you notice, sorry, that's a bad drawing, you have 6 and 1, okay? And that's a right angle there. You don't have all the sides for perimeter, but you can find the big B first. So go ahead and see if you can get all these correct. All right, so let's take a look and check over. Once you do the Pythagorean theorem, because remember this will be 3 and 3, you will get your side length to be 3.2. So that's how you add 3.2, 3.2, and 6 to get 12.4. All right. Now, this is a cube or a hexahedron. It is not on your formula sheet, but you can also use the volume as length, width, and height, and the surface area as 2LW plus 2LH plus 2WH, the rectangular prism, because you know in a cube, these are all the same. So really, the volume, we also can label as side cubed. All right? So, perimeter of the base, it's a square. So square's perimeter is 4 times 7, which gives us 28. The height is going to be 7. The area of the base is 7 squared, which is 49. We'll do the surface area. Surface area is 2 times 7 times 7 plus 2 times 7 times 7 plus 2 times 7 times 7. Okay, so then our surface area for this will be 294. To find the lateral area, technically there's not really a lateral area because all those they're not bases, but we'll just, you do the surface area, which is 294, minus the area of 2 bases, which is 2 times 49. So your lateral area, if you would consider there to be a lateral area, would be 196. And then finally the volume, what I would do is 7 cubed. You can do that on your calculator, and 7 cubed is 343. So that is the cube if you have a problem like that. All right, so sometimes you have a word problem, but let's go ahead and just look over what it says, a triangular prism. So they tell us what shape it is, and it tells us actually that the lateral area, so if you look for lateral area of a triangular prism, lateral area equals h times p, so I'm just going to write that down. It wants to know the height, and they give us the lateral area is 300. The height is x, and remember the perimeter is the perimeter of the base. Well, they tell us the sides of our triangular base are 4, 5, and 6. So go ahead and add those up, and you get the perimeter of the base to be 15. So actually, this word problem is not hard if you know to use the lateral area. Solve it, and you get the height to be 20. All right, sometimes they give you a composite figure, which means two different shapes put together in one. You're trying to find the volume of this. Well, I'm just going to break it up into two rectangular prisms, and volume is length times width times height. So the top one, you're going to use 2 times 3 times 8, 2, 3, and then 8. Okay, so that volume will be 48. On the bottom one, we have 6 times 8 times 2. So 6 times 8 times 2 gives you the volume of 96. Add them together to get the total volume, which should be 144. All right, we're going to talk about cylinders. They are also on your formula sheet. We're going to do the surface area and volume. All you really need is the radius and the height of your cylinder. So for the first one, SA, I'm just going to write down, is 2 times pi times the radius squared plus 2 times pi times the radius times the height. Now, when I look at this formula, what I want you guys to realize is this part of the formula here is the circles. There are 2 of them. They're the bases. This part here is the rectangle that forms the outside of the cylinder. Because there are 2 bases, that's why it's 2 pi r squared. Pi r squared is the area formula for a circle. So let's go ahead and plug in our volumes, or our values for radius and height. So with our surface area, 2 times pi times 3 squared plus 2 times pi times 3 and 5 is the height. I'm going to keep everything in terms of pi. That means I'm just going to square the 3 and times 2, so 18 pi plus 30 pi gives me 48 pi as our surface area. So that's what I mean by terms of pi. Volume is pi times the radius, 3 squared, times the height, 5. So keeping it in terms of pi, 9 times 5 is 45 pi. So that's our surface area and volume. Go ahead and try the second one on your own. Hopefully you have gotten the surface area is 170 pi and the volume is 300 pi. Let's try a word problem. Now this is really testing if you know your formula. It says you're having a carton of oatmeal, and I'll just sketch this out with a radius of 3.5 and a height of 5. Okay, so there's our little can of oatmeal, carton of oatmeal. And you're asked to cover all the surfaces except the top, okay? Because everything but the top is made of cardboard. So really you're covering everything but even this bottom part, but this top circle, okay? And you're also asked to round your answer to the nearest square inch. Well, thinking about surface area, because we're covering this, surface area equals 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi r h. Now remember, I just told you this part represents the bases, or the 2 circles. Well, we're not covering up both bases. We only need one base. So what I can do to this formula is drop that 2 off, because we only need the pi r squared for the base, circular base there. So really we're going to use this formula as pi r squared plus 2 pi r h to solve this problem. Let's plug in our values. Pi times 3.5 squared plus 2 pi, 3.5, and 5. Now, it wants you to round to the nearest square inch, so that means we're not keeping it in terms of pi. You plug this whole thing into your calculator and use the pi button, and you should get about 148.4. So that is to the nearest square inch, 148. Final answer. Last problem of the day is to find the volume of the remaining cylinder. This is kind of like a toilet paper roll or a paper towel roll with the center cylinder is removed. We don't use it. So what you need to first do is find the volume of the large one. Volume is pi times radius squared times the height. Well, the radius of the large one is not 6, the radius is 3, because that's the diameter. Cut it in half, 3 squared, and the height is 5. So I'm going to keep this in terms of pi. You get 45 pi for the large cylinder. Now for the small cylinder, okay, you have the radius is not 2, the radius is half of that, so you have pi times 1 squared, and the height as 5. So keeping it in terms of pi, you have 5 pi. We need to remove that center part, so I'm going to subtract 5 pi from 45 pi, which leaves me with the remaining of 40 pi. Or you can put it in decimal, I just like to keep it in terms of pi. So please know how to use each formula.